Hey, girlfriends, how are you treating yourself when you are having, that conversation that goes swirling in your head and you're talking to yourself? Are you talking to yourself like you are your biggest critic? You're judging yourself? Or are you talking to yourself like you are your own best girlfriend and being kind and compassionate and opening up that perspective? Well, guess what? We're going to be talking about that today. And, life is just richer with our girlfriends. So, what if you had your best girlfriend with you all the time? And so, we have Carmen here, and I am Carmen. I am just loving this, walking through these resources that are in the Being Brave magazine. And you have come and featured this, the best friend reframe. And just it's like taking your little girlfriend along with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the best friend ever. The one you can trust.
Yeah, the best friend ever. Not the other friend, but the best friend who really gets you, who really comes alongside of you when you're in that spot where you just need someone to go love on you. And, we don't come to these resources just like, oh, they pop in our head. A lot of times there's a story that goes along that got you here in the first place. So tell us a little bit about you, where you're coming from, and a little bit how you came to be where you're at today.
Sure, I'd be glad to. First of all, thank you, Karen, for the magazine, which I think is phenomenal, sharing women's stories and they're choosing to be brave every day. It's so important. And I think those examples are so valuable for women to hear. And then the resources on top of that, it's amazing. So thank you. I'm very glad to be here. And you're right, these things don't just pop out of thin air. Usually when we have a message to share, it's because we've lived through something, we've gone through something, which is how we've learned it. And now we want to share it because we don't want everyone else to have to go through the same struggles, the same decades, of struggle that we did.
Yeah.
And so that definitely describes my story. I was a good girl. I did the expected things for the most part. And I tried to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
I tried to make my family happy, my parents, my teachers, my bosses, my clients when I had my own business, and I did very well. Right? I kept people happy. I achieved and I got burnout. Because you can't keep going at that pace if you are not also focusing on, what do I actually want?
Right. So I wonder how many other women, just even with what you said so far, we have these little put I relate in it. Have you been a people pleaser, living to the expectations of others, being the good girl, being the do it all girl. So you can be pleasing in all these different spaces of your life. I can relate to a lot of those.
Yeah. And for me, it's interesting. Like I said, I did well for the most part. Mm-hmm. Where I did not do well was romantic relationships. Mm-hmm. I really struggled. And I always ended up in these very unhealthy, with alcoholics, with somebody that was unavailable for one reason or another. And I got to a point where I was like, what? Why? Why is this such a struggle for me? Mm-hmm. And it took me being in another relationship with an alcoholic, and he was living with me. So it was 24/7, right? Mm-hmm. And I got to the point where I had to ask him to leave because I knew it wasn't healthy for me anymore. So I wasn't ending the relationship. I was just like, we need space or we're going to kill each other. And I finally got to the point where I had to ask for help because I did not know where to go. I did not know what to do next. There seemed to be no clear answers. And so I did. And I started counseling and I started getting into some personal development, like coaching programs, places where I felt held, where I felt safe, where I could share my stories and not feel judged. Yeah. Because I was really good at judging myself. And that really shifted so much for me to be able to express what I was feeling, what I was thinking, and be able to get it like out of my head, out of my body. And like, it's like it sets it free, right? And then you can look at it. Then you can look at it with more perspective.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, and I love this because so ladies, if you're not familiar with our Being Brave tour magazine, it's these short little prompts. It's like, go grab your cup of coffee, go sit on the couch, a little me time for 10 minutes. And sometimes maybe in 5 minutes, maybe you just want to answer one of the questions. But like you said, put it on paper. And it's not like I'm not a big journaler. But I like these because they're really direct questions that you can just jot down something to think through. And I think that is something that is really key here, is that you can kind of walk through this pretty quickly and feel, like you said, feel safe. And so why don't we just pause for a second, because you in this resource here, and ladies, if you don't have it, we'll be putting the link. You can download the magazine for free. We're not asking for your email or anything. We want this in your hands because we want you to take a brave step with us. And so in the beginning, though, after you kind of share your story, you pause for a second and create that safe space, and you ask us to give ourselves a hug. So girls, give yourself a hug. Just go, you know what? I'm going to be your best friend. And breathe it in. I love that. Yeah. So where did your story take you next? You're going to counseling, you're walking through this.
Yeah. So I spent a good 6-7 years doing hardcore personal development. I mean, I had a full-time job, but I also was like full-time personal development because I was done with struggling through life. You know, even when I got through through that relationship and that struggle, I still was like, okay, I feel better. I feel more at peace, but I don't love my life. Right. I'm like, there's something more. There's something more available. And I, a coach asked me, she's like, well, what would you love? And I was like, I don't know. Like, my answer at that point was, I want to enjoy my life.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, first of all, because I've gone through some difficult situations. Walked through a divorce where your life was one way and then it was a different way. And people would ask me that, Carmen, and I'm like, I thought I loved the things that I have, but I don't have those anymore. So I got to find some new things, or, so it's just, and it does, like you said, it takes years sometimes to really kind of figure out, what do I love? That's not an easy question. And that's something to discover.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that I've noticed that my experience, like we were talking, people pleasing, everybody else's expectations. So the way I look at it is, the reason that question's so difficult for some people, what would I love? Because we have spent our entire lives not asking that question. We are worried about what everybody else is going to be happy with. So it's a new question. At whatever age you start asking this question, it's new.
It is. I started asking that question at 58. And I'm like, I don't know, but do I love? Okay, I like swimming, I like bike riding, but I can only do so much of that, and even though maybe there's that piece, but you don't have your life, you almost feel like there's a hole or something there that needs to be filled.
Yeah. And I think it's being gentle with yourself with that, right? And saying, okay, well, I don't have to have a list of 10 immediately, and just, I have a list. Like, I have a piece of paper where I would write, as things came to me, I just add them to the list.
Okay.
So then now I have a list. So if I'm like having a bad day, I can look at the list and go, oh yeah, I could go for a walk, or I could take some pictures, or I can go to an art gallery, or write all these different, I could go to a coffee shop because I love coffee shops, or a bookstore, and when you have then a variety of things on your list, it makes it a lot easier to just give yourself something.
Oh, and like maybe take yourself out on a little date or whatever. Yes, I love it. To things that you love to do. Yes. So, you talk about this. If you wouldn't say it to your best friend, don't say it to yourself. And so you, like you're talking to your best friend, and you take us through some questions. So kind of, you come through your story. And so we're going to go into this in just a second. But so how did you come up with this best friend reframe?
Well, I had just started my membership group, which I call the Soul Love Circle.
Oh,
And that's really about loving yourself better in
okay.
all the many aspects that that can take. And this was for the first session. I had actually had something else in mind to do with them. And then this actually did kind of pop into my head. Okay. I'm like, this is something everyone can relate to very easily, right? Because we say things to ourselves in the mirror all the time that we would never say to our best friend.
Right.
Oh my
Absolutely.
God. Like,
Absolutely.
you're so stupid. Why did you do that? You look terrible. Like, all the things. We're so hard on ourselves. And we would never say those things to our best friend.
Right. So you talk about that your hope for women as they walk through this, that they have a different perspective and that they show themselves compassion instead of judgment.
Yes. For me, judgment has been a huge issue.
Yes.
I avoided things that I was afraid people would think I'm not good enough, because I was really good at some things. And then there were things that I was like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to play sports. I don't know how to, I was a really good musician reading the music, but I didn't understand improvisation. So I didn't want to participate in the jazz band because I didn't want to be forced to improvise and, oh my God, feel like a fool not knowing what I was doing. So I was afraid to try new things because of the perception I had of judgment.
Yeah.
Right? I was always going to judge myself for not doing something perfectly, which is insane when you haven't done it ever before, right? I mean, how dumb is that? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
I know. And I'm even reading this and I'm laughing because one of my things is I don't like to do things wrong. And so I actually could show up in that space of, oh, I've already done something wrong, even though I haven't done anything yet. And I show up that way and, oh, I must have done something wrong. Always thinking that, oh, it must be my fault. And I must have done something wrong. And you have that in here and it's like, what have I done wrong? And it's like, girlfriend, we don't have to be perfect. So let's start a conversation with ourselves. So tell us what this looks like.
Yeah. So what I invite you to do is, think about your life right now and something that's bothering you, something that feels like, it's a challenge, that you're maybe beating yourself up about, and just journal that out. I say that the worst place for your thoughts to be is in your head. Like, get them out.
Free the thoughts.
Free the thoughts, because when they're just circling, you're trapped in that, and if you can put them on paper or if you can tell them to someone safe, it sets them free and then you can look at them.
Yes.
So while they're in your head, you're stuck in them. So,
yeah, you know what is so funny is that because sometimes other people can see things in us, that maybe we're dealing with that we're not identifying, and becoming aware of things is key, first of all. And my son called me out on something last night. He goes, Mom, you're coming from a place of fear. And I said, huh? I said, I am. And so that is kind of my thing. I can sometimes live in the fear, react to the fear, and then I'm whatever situation I'm bringing that fear along with me, and it's not, it's the kind of sometimes the fear of doing something wrong, or the fear of saying something right, or the fear of not living to others' expectations. So it's not just, it's like compounding these different things. So, and this is what I love about this is that I also am walking through these little prompts and everything. And I have been learning so much about myself.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. It's like having these little counsel sessions.
Yeah.
It's free. You come and join us,
Absolutely.
So what's something maybe that, as you're talking about this, the situations that may be challenging you lately, what do some of those look like for some of the ladies that you've worked with?
Well, it could be a situation at your work. Say you're having misunderstanding or an unspoken disagreement, like your supervisor expects one thing and you want it to be a different way, right? And no one's saying anything about it, or it could be something, in your relationship with your partner or with your child, where there's like somebody's misbehaving, right? They're behaving in a way that makes you uncomfortable, right? And it can be in any aspect of your life. It could be about not making enough money, however you define that. It can be anything that's like taking up mental space that you keep dwelling on, right?
Yeah. Like free those thoughts and put them on this paper.
Absolutely.
I have to say,
I will guarantee you that it will never make it worse if you write it down.
Oh, yeah. And I think sometimes too, it allows you to kind of breathe.
Yeah.
Because I hold my breath. I had a doctor one time say, hey, he goes, do you know you hold your breath? And I'm like, I'm kind of holding that thought in, or that feeling. And so just getting it on paper is helpful, even if it's jotting it down sometimes, because I don't like writing, sometimes in full sentences. I'll just like,
yeah, you don't have to. Yeah, that's what I feel like. There's no rules about journaling, right? Oh. It can be anything. You can write lists. You can make a story. You can write song lyrics. You can do whatever you want. But just get those thoughts and those feelings out.
Yeah. And I like what you said here too. You don't have to understand everything.
No, don't try to understand it. Don't edit. Don't try to make it sound nicer. Like, don't hold anything back. Like, you can burn this after you're done. Like,
yes, nobody needs to see our
journal sheets. No, that will defeat the purpose if you're thinking about other people reading it. So yes, this is your diary that no one is ever going to read.
Yes. Okay. Now this second question, this one really hit a note with me. I will tell you, it says, what are you making this situation mean about you? This is something I have been dealing with for quite a few years. And this is something that other people would say, they say, you're making the situation about you and it has absolutely nothing to do with you. But I made it all about me because I made up a story and didn't stick with the facts. And, they must have meant this. And they must have, making these assumptions, making a story and making it so I could maybe be the victim or have the pity party or I feel so sad. They've hurt my feelings and all those things. And so to tell us kind of how we walk through this.
Yeah. So, for example, if you are with that job situation where you're not speaking your mind and your supervisor seems like they want something different from you than you want, then you might think, well, I'm failing as an employee because I'm not making my boss happy. You could think it means that you're weak because you're not standing up for yourself. Right? It can go many different ways.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of it, and you might write all of those down, right? It might be a combination of those things. And a lot of it, I think, comes from all of our conditioning, up to that point, like what our experiences have been. Those are the patterns that will tend to repeat, right? So if we're used to feeling like a victim, we might interpret it as poor me. And the bad things always happen to me, like, or it was good, so of course it wasn't going to last, or right. And it's what you're going to find in this is, and again, it's not about judging yourself. It's just noticing. It's just noticing, how am I interpreting this situation? Because the situation is really just facts, like you said, right? And all of our feelings come from our interpretation of the facts. Right? So if your supervisor's not happy with you or you're not happy with the job the way it is, okay, those are facts. You're a bad employee, you're weak, you're failing. All are interpretations. Interpretation is choice. We get to choose our interpretations. So those are the stories we tell about the things that are happening, about those facts.
Okay. The story we are telling ourselves about those facts. Yes.
Yeah. So like the next question then is, how does that interpretation make you feel? Because then you can see, oh, this is actually making me feel less than. It's making me feel powerless.
Yeah. Helpless.
Yeah. Right. So you can then go, oh, wait, maybe this story's not good for me. I mean, really.
Right. Really. Yes.
Maybe this is not, but wait, there's more to the activity, but this just like this is a great pattern to get into of questioning the stories we tell ourselves.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So what's our next step in this process?
So now we've told our story. We've gotten the feelings out. We've figured out how we're interpreting it, how it makes us feel about ourselves. And then we take that safety break. Then we were like, okay, we're just going to set the pen down and we're going to take some deep breaths. And I usually recommend people close their eyes when they're doing this because we tend to get distracted by the external. And, maybe give yourself that hug again. Yeah. And allow for those deep belly breaths. Just, slow it down at your pace. And just let all that stuff that you wrote down, just let it go. Doesn't matter. There's nothing to do about it right now. And just let that peace in your body that you're okay. There's literally nothing wrong in this moment. And that's our baseline. That's our true way of being. That's who we are. We are peace. We are love. We are perfect. And it's all that mind stuff that stresses us out. So it's always good to come back to that safe space. And you can do that in, many different ways. But I do, just some simple, slow breathing with your eyes closed can do wonders.
Yeah, I should incorporate that into my day a little bit more often. Set a little alarm or something like, okay, now let's go to that safe space and
absolutely,
yeah, absolutely. So, but we're not done yet. We still
have steps. No. So what then I invite people to do is go back to that first section where you wrote down everything, right? The facts that are happening and how you're feeling about it and all the things, is to go back to that and look at it as your best friend, your literal best friend. So if your best friend's name is Sally, you're going to pretend that Sally's the one that told this story. So I actually recommend you go with your pen and change it all. So like, instead of, I'm really upset about so-and-so, Sally is really upset about this. She feels this, right? And change all of those pronouns and, any nouns that you need to change so that it's now your best friend that is experiencing this thing.
This is interesting because when you even say that, my whole perspective goes like this. And I go, oh, but when it's about me, it's like, there's a whole different emotion there. But I was just thinking too, what if you, even with somebody who maybe you're having a difficult conversation with, what if in your mind's eye you go, this is my best friend. How would I talk to my best friend?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And then when you reread that, that it's your best friend, then like you just said, you already have a different feeling about it.
Yeah.
You're feeling compassion.
Yes. Compassion.
Which most of us have been trained not to feel for ourselves, right? We're hard on ourselves. We're criticizing ourselves all the time. And so when you change it to your best friend and you now have compassion instead of criticism, it's a completely different feeling. And there's clarity. It's like, well, what would you say to her? And you're going to be like, oh, I know exactly what I'd say to her.
Yeah. So do you recommend kind of saying that out loud, kind of responding?
You can write it down. Yeah, I think actually I do believe that speaking things out loud is really powerful. And you can do that without anybody listening.
Right.
Yeah. The main thing I believe is to have a safe space. So that's why I believe journaling is really helpful, because it's something you can do anywhere. Like no one needs to know. And so it is super safe. But yes, I do actually think speaking things aloud is even more powerful.
Yes. And I like what you said here. What advice would you give her? And sometimes we just need a listening ear. So sometimes there's no advice to be given, but to just sit and pause and go.
Yeah. And that might be what you'd say to her, is like, that sounds really hard.
Yeah. That's one of the phrases I learned going through some very difficult situations. I really needed people to just acknowledge that, you know what, this is really hard. I didn't need anything else. And that kind of filled the gap.
Yeah. Because we don't want people to tell us what to do.
No.
We don't, and no one can know what is best for us. I truly believe that. Like, I am a firm believer in coaches and mentors and all that, but it's for the purpose of listening, for reflecting back, right? Not for advice giving, but for reflecting back what's already there, and for introducing new perspectives. That's not giving answers. That's just offering different perspectives, because to me, that is the biggest difference. And like, I see that as, in physical terms, as a photographer, you can take pictures of the same thing from different angles. That picture is going to look completely different.
Right.
Right. Well, life is the same way. You can look at a situation from 6 different angles. It's going to look completely different.
Yes, but wouldn't this reframe a conversation even? I think I need to hear this, because I had a difficult conversation recently. Yeah. We listened, reflected back what they were saying.
Yeah.
And maybe that is just, oh, that sounds hard. Yeah. Or it must be hard. And, are you open to a new perspective?
Yeah. Yeah. Because, like we were saying, we have patterns that we tend to revert to, right?
Oh, yeah.
From our conditioning, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you're aware of that, it helps, because you can go, oh, you can catch it. You can, when you start becoming more aware of it. But if those are all you're used to, then you may not think of other perspectives to try.
Correct.
And that's where other people, whether they be coaches or friends or, whoever, can say, hey, but what if you look at it from this perspective? Have you thought about this? And like, it's the thing that seems like the biggest challenge in the world might turn out to be the biggest opportunity.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
And all you need is that, like, it can be instantaneous. You were like, oh my goodness, you are absolutely right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love what you said here at the on your last page. When we look at a life event as an observer, as if it's happening to someone else, the overwhelm of emotions dissipate, the self-judgment disappears, and the attachment to the outcome dissolves. We can see the truth of the situation and what next steps to take. In other words, we welcome in peace, self-compassion, ease, and clarity. And welcome home, girlfriend. I love it. I love these little things that we can, sometimes it's just some words or something where we can have a place to jot down those thoughts and let them free, and then take that as, when I was walking through a situation, I actually had to pretend like I was a surgeon. Mm-hmm. Looking at, so I could detach the emotion and actually see the facts for what they were. And I have to remind myself, and other people have said, oh, look at your life like it's a movie. Mm-hmm. Like you're watching it, you're an observer. But I needed to somehow be able to, because I thought, oh, if a surgeon is going into surgery, he's not taking any emotion with him.
Right.
He's just looking at what's in front of him and looking at the facts and what needs to be done. And so that's helped me so I could kind of cut that cord of the emotion. But this really helps you kind of process that, because we do have those thoughts and those emotions that, we bring the stories around them.
Yeah. And and one thing that we didn't talk about was the attachment to the outcome. That's really, really important, right? Because when it's our own thing, then we have one certain outcome that we want, right? We're stuck on that. That's what we want to happen. And, regardless of how it happens, that's what we want. When it's our girlfriend, we want them to be happy. We don't care what the specific outcome is, other than we want them to be happy. We want the best for them. So when you can look at your own situation like it's your friend's, mm-hmm. then you're going to be more open to different outcomes. Mm-hmm. And that is really important, because that allows for the other perspectives. That allows for you to let go of that illusion of control we don't have, and that is a really important part of that, which could be a whole nother conversation, but I just wanted to point that out, because
yes, that could be a whole nother conversation. We may have to let go of outcomes. So that's a whole nother good one. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, let's just real quick go through what are the steps, and what is your hope that they get out of this?
Sure. Yeah. So again, it's, take that situation that you're facing, that you're struggling with, that's occupying the mental space, write it out, all of it, the feelings, the thoughts, get it on paper, and look at, okay, well, what am I making this mean? And how am I feeling about myself based on what I've written down? And then you take that safety break, and you make sure you feel safe and loved absolutely exactly the way you are. There's nothing wrong. And then you go back and you cross out your name and you put your best friend's name and you reread that story that you wrote. Mm-hmm. And you ask yourself, what would I say to my best friend if she told me this story? Yeah. And then you take that advice, you take that to heart.
Yeah, I love it. And what are you hoping women get out of this?
I really hope that women start being nicer to themselves. Nicer, kinder to themselves. Yeah. Having more compassion, not beating themselves up for all these things that they haven't done right, mm-hmm. Or haven't done yet. Life is here to be experienced. It's not a test. And I would love for them to love themselves exactly where they are. And I believe that frees them up to experience such a more beautiful life, which is what I want for everyone.
Yes. And, as we discover these things, we find the beauty within us too. And my hope for women as they're walking through this exercise and some of the others, that you honor who you are and you celebrate you. As you walk through this, and maybe you laugh after you put your friend's name in there and you're going, oh, I can't believe I was thinking that. And maybe laugh at some of those things, or laugh at those fears, and as you're facing these different things. So ladies, I hope that you'll enjoy this magazine and to walk through this exercise if you have a situation you're walking through. So Carmen, what would be the next step for somebody with you if they were to go through this this, and what would they do next?
Sure. And I do have a 15-minute walkthrough available. If somebody wants to get on the phone and do this, or on Zoom and do this, I'm happy to do that for no fee for that. And then I have the Soul Love Circle, which is my membership group, and we meet twice a month. And it's really a space where we get to do this. We do actually do some journaling, and we do speak aloud. And it's a safe space where you get to get that stuff out of your head, right? Get it out. And then feel loved, feel safe in that. There's no, I've had people tell me, like, I never had a place, I never had a space where I could just share my feelings about things without consequences, right? Because if you talk to your family members about a family situation, consequences, right? But what we really need is a place to get this out. So that we can then have the clarity to know how to move forward. And it's a really beautiful space. Right now, it's mainly journaling and speaking. I am going to move it, or at least offer other things with more creative expression, because I believe the more fully we express ourselves, the wholer we feel, the more authentic we feel, the more alive we feel. And that's my goal at this point. I want to feel the most alive I possibly can. I want to enjoy my life as much as I possibly can.
Yes. Learn to love the things that bring life and energy and just all that good stuff into your life. Carmen, thank you for walking us through this and just creating this little best friend reframe for us to walk through. So just what a joy to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Karen. I appreciate that.
All right, ladies, we will see you next time. Download the magazine, Being Brave Tour magazine, and it is coming to Amazon very soon. Excited to be able to share that, so you will be able to write in it and all those good things. But in the meantime, download our free flip magazine. All right, ladies, we'll see you next time.